Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fourth episode of my podcast, the series where I talk about certain topics such as gaming, film, or religion. Today's subject is the complete story of murder drones. Now, just to clarify on a couple things before we start, I am winging this one. I am not reading off a script. Normally, I write an entire script around 1.5 to 2 pages, but I only have a few notes, and I'm completely winging it because every time I go off a script, it feels like I can't get all of my points across, and I feel like I'm just confined to say what I wrote down. So I am just gonna wing this one. There's gonna be a lot of edits, a lot of cuts, but hopefully I could have more energy and actually share more feelings and more ideas and more theories that I have. Now that we got that out of the way, I will say that there's also spoilers for episode 7 of Murder Drones, which came out at the time of recording 3 days ago. Came out 3 days ago on March 29th. So if you haven't seen that, please do not watch this video because there will be some spoilers. Now, also for this discussion, I'm gonna pretend like none of you have seen the show. I do recommend you do watch the show before you come back to this video, because if you watch this video, you'll be so flipping confused. But I am just gonna reintroduce some of the main characters just so we can get that point across and everyone's on the same point. Because even when I first watched the show, I was really confused and I kind of needed some help on what the show was about and how it works and what's going on, because it was really confusing for me. I also do recommend that if you've seen the entire series and you're really confused, watch MatPat's video on Game Theorist. It really helped me understand the lore better because I was so confused. Now for the introductions, I'm gonna introduce some of the main characters just so we have that point across. We're gonna talk about Uzi, NVJ, Khan, Dal, Nori, Yeva or Yeva. I don't really know the correct pronunciation, I'm not gonna lie. Tessa and Sin. Just so everyone knows, Sin is the main antagonist of the show. It's really confusing because they kind of switch back and forth whether they're with the humans or against the humans, and it's really confusing. Pause. For clarification, when I say they're either with the humans or against the humans, I mean when they're possessed by the Absolute Solver, they're against the humans, but when they're not, they're on the human side. I just want to get that point clear because it sounds like I'm confused, but I mean, depending on if they're possessed or not, shows if they're on the human side. It's not really a human versus robot side of the story. It's more of a basically everyone versus Sin, to be honest, and Sin's also against the humans though. It's kind of hard to explain, but that's kind of why I'm going in depth with this. N, V, and J, yes, those are all singular letters. It's kind of confusing, but the reason they're called that is because they're called serial designation and then N, V, and J. These three characters are disassembly drones. These disassembly drones are sent from Earth to kill worker drones. So the story from the very beginning, which the very beginning of the story is actually shown in episode 3, not really shown in the first episode. It is somewhat shown in the first episode, but it's not very clear, and it's more descriptive in episode 3. So just to clarify with the families, because families is kind of a confusing thing. Tessa is a human. Sin, Yeva, Nori, Dal, Khan, Uzi, NV, and J, they're all drones. Okay, so Tessa's the only human that's necessarily significant to the storyline. Tessa, in her spare time, likes to tinker with broken worker drones.
We will not entertain your dumpster pits.
Yes, Mother. Sorry, Mother.
Especially with Sin. Sin had a huge respect for Tessa when she was alive.
You will not have to discard your pets, and I will not discard you. Best stay away from the gala, though. You seem squeamish.
Now, you might be confused because Tessa is alive during a lot of the episodes, I think mainly during 5, 6, and 7, right? But if you can see in episode 7, Tessa, the entire time she was there, was actually Sin just pretending to be Tessa.
Oh yes, get snack upon.
Now, to get the parents not confused, I just want to say that Uzi is the child of Khan and Nori, and Doll is the child of Yiva. Now that that's out of the way, it's less confusing. Envy and Jay and Sin were all together with Tessa, but Uzi and Doll, who are very significant, were not around during that time. Envy, Jay, and Sin were programmed to not age. Although Uzi, Khan, Nori, Doll, Eva, they are all programmed to age. So they will age with time, but Envy and Jay will not age. If you want a more in-depth explanation of the background story of Envy, Jay, and Sin, I would say go watch episode 5, which is called Home, where Uzi tries to hack N's memories before the solver can absolutely erase them. And so I would recommend to watch the full series, like I said, before even coming back to this video. Now it's time to discuss the main point of this video. And the main point and the main storyline of Murder Drones is this thing called the Absolute Solver. The Absolute Solver is a program that is run inside of very rare cases of drones. It can run inside disassembly drones or worker drones, considering that they could be the same thing, because in Home, as we see in the flashbacks, Envy, Jay, and Sin are all worker drones at that time, but Envy and Jay become disassembly drones later on Copper 9. Copper 9 is the planet that this is all placed on, just an FYI for everyone. The memories that we see in episode 5 are placed on Earth. For a more specific explanation, the Absolute Solver can either be passed down to the children of who has the Absolute Solver, or it can be inherited by getting a worker drone to be thrown out in a incomplete way. The Absolute Solver has a very rare chance that if a worker drone is thrown out with not care and not deactivated, it can be inherited into that worker drone, and if that worker drone, let's say, has a child, that child will also have the Absolute Solver, but it might be a more tamed version of it. Although for Uzi and Nori, it's less tamed than Yiva and Doll, which we'll get into in a little bit. So now we're going to explain why Doll and Uzi are different with the Solver, and what is the patch. The patch was shown in episode 7. The patch was basically a thing to help Yiva fix the Absolute Solver and fix it in a way that she still has it, but it's not as controlling over her body. As you can see with Nori, she gets controlled very easily. Same with Uzi. You can see in, I think it's episode 3, that Doll and Uzi, after they're done fighting, you can see that when Doll finds out Uzi also has the Absolute Solver, she can see that Uzi has a fairly worse version of it, because Doll's mother had the patch, but Uzi's mother did not have the patch. We can see Tessa, who is Sin disguised as Tessa, blow up in episode 7. As we can see, after Sin disguised as Tessa blows up any evidence of the patch, Doll asks Tessa, what is the patch? So I clearly watched the video wrong, and she said, where is the patch? She knew about the patch. She was trying to find it to fix her own solver problems. So ignore this little part of me being really confused on what is going on right now, because I got those two mixed up. And in that moment, or Sin, disguised as Tessa, decides to murder Doll right then and there, so there was no evidence of Doll finding out about the patch. N then later finds about the patch from Nori, because N and Nori were actually together a lot during this episode, and Uzi was kind of on her own majority of the time. So N finds out the patch from Nori, then N confronts Tessa about the patch.
You knew about the patch, yes or no? One chance.
Cute. You know why I keep you around here?
Tessa completely ignores the question, and N without hesitation slices Tessa's neck off. It is pretty brutal scene, but then we can see later that Tessa was never actually alive in the first place, and it was Sin disguised as Tessa, because we can see her put her head back on. So it is really brutal, but yeah, we can see that it was actually Sin the entire time, disguised as Tessa. Now, to move on to the B plot. The B plot of this episode wasn't necessarily random, but it isn't really complete, I would say. The B plot shows Thad and Lizzie. So if you don't know who Thad and Lizzie are, they were They are classmates of Uzi. Probably not anymore because everything is, completely gone to crap. But, Thad and Lizzie are classmates. You can see, for the most part, it was shown in episode 4, I believe, because that's when they went camping, and that's why Thad and Lizzie are kind of like, for the past 3 episodes, have been strolling around in the middle of the forest randomly. I think, personally, that they wouldn't have added Thad and Lizzie if they were not significant to the final episode. If you can see it, Thad and Lizzie, eventually Khan, the father of Uzi, shows up with Thad and Lizzie, and he kind of mentions, I think he knows what's going on. And I think Thad, Lizzie, and Khan will definitely come into play, especially in episode 8, mainly because they wouldn't have animated them, they wouldn't have put them into that certain B plot if they weren't significant to the next episode, which is the finale. Same with Jay. Jay wouldn't be in the episode if she wasn't significant to the episode. It does show, though, at the very end, does show Thad, Lizzie, and Jay finally meet up at the very top of the Cabin Fever Labs, and during that, you can see them all together. I don't think they would have added them into this if they were not significant to episode 8. So my theory for episode 8 is they will come in and they will try and, I guess, rescue Uzi, because if you've seen the finale of episode 7, like if you've seen the ending, it shows that she's just floating in space. I don't know if that's necessarily space. I think that could be the inner core of the planet Copper 9. So I think that concludes this episode. I really hope you guys enjoy. If you did, hit the like button, hit subscribe, and go follow my TikTok at Shaky Snake, because I will be posting live reactions for when I reacted to episode 7 live. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys all in the next episode. Goodbye.